Senator Laura, are there any other states that have the same level of standards that you're hoping to achieve here?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it is interesting, as Senator Roth mentioned, I've done some traveling, and it seems like every other country mandates that we wear seatbelts, and in the United States, apparently we don't need to. So that's very interesting. I don't know why that is, but that's something we should look at some point.
Well, very much so. And in our industry, when cars got seatbelts, we wondered why buses weren't mandated. Yep. And we've been lobbying for that for a long time. We do have 3-point seatbelts now. We can also, say to our passengers, and we do through the CD and through driver announcements, through SPAB now, Special People Activity Bus, we've been making these announcements for years. So it's out there, it's there, and we can do it, and we ask our drivers to do it. There's that human factor. If they forget, like in this instance, there is an unknown that's out there, but we hope that everybody does make the announcement. And you're right, but in Europe, I travel in Europe, and the driver says, I wish you would put your seatbelt on, but you look around, my wife and I are the only ones with seatbelts on.
Thank you. Senator Gaines. Other questions, anybody else? Okay, Senator Roth after Senator Gaines.
Great, thank you very much. I want to thank Senator Laura for bringing this forward on a very important issue, and my condolences to the victims and their families. I'm trying to get a handle on seeing if there's a workable solution, and I appreciate Senator Laura working with the industry. I do have some concerns about how do you deal with this in California versus nationally, because I think if you could do it nationally, then you've got one standard that everybody is following. And from a cost perspective, it's not only the additional cost of the material and the labor, but you also have a component of loss of use for California buses. So if it's going to take 30 to 60 days, I think you mentioned 60 days, I'm trying to get an idea in my mind, and what is the cost of that loss of use to the bus operator?
Depending on who the operator is and they look at their cost of doing business, I would say that on a daily basis, a motor coach will be on the road for $950 to $1,550 a day, depending on what type of trip it's on.
So 60 to
60, 70, $80,000, could be $100,000 depending
okay. Is there
on how quick the parts come in.
any way that process could be streamlined so that it would take fewer days?
When you start doing structural work on a bus, like adding a battery for a separate power source and putting a side door in a bus, you depend on a separate entity to do that work for you, like Complete Coach Works down in Riverside, and they would dictate the time.
Okay, okay.
We would not take that on as an individual company.
Could these standards be changed at the federal level? I mean, to what degree can we, as California, impress that this be done nationally? I don't know if you know the answer to that, Senator Laura. I'm just
Right. Well, of course, we can always recommend, the stricter federal guidelines through our resolution process, but know that we've confirmed with our ledge council, and they say we're well within our authority to be able to adopt the mandates and make them the rule here in California. So we'll continue to push the federal government to move on this. Just to let you know, there has been no sign that the federal government will act. But we've historically, from pipeline safety to carbon emissions to limousine safety, and among many others, California has acted on issues where the federal government has neglected to. And so this is just one more example of us showing leadership and trying to protect our California citizens.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to look at the cost, the loss of use, and then what does that do to bus fares? I mean, is this then something that's passed on to passengers? If we look at the nature of the accident, it was very, very unusual, and the actual explosion and fire was as a result of the UPS truck that hit the bus. So
It was a FedEx truck, I believe.
or FedEx. Oh, sorry, I don't want to.
Company, I think.
I probably shouldn't call out any company name.
Yeah, really.
Thank you, but I'm just.
I believe.
I'm trying to weigh all the issues here. An average of 11 deaths per year from buses versus 32,000 from automobiles. So I would just encourage the author to do everything they can to try to set any standard that could be done in an efficient manner, that could be implemented as quickly as possible. And I think nationally is ultimately the answer because you're going to have separate standards for California that will raise costs for bus riders just in California. So.
Senator Gaines, if I can respond, these actual recommendations from the NTSB, who are our national experts, have been recommended way before this accident. And so, several studies of various incidents have, spearheaded these recommendations. So these recommendations go way beyond what happened in Orland. And so we feel, we should be able to lead here. And so, again, taking NTSB's countless studies on bus safeties, this is what the recommendations come from. So just to make it clear that it's been an ongoing discussion that they've been trying to push these regulations for several years now.
Very well. Thank you for your willingness to work with the industry. Of
course.
I think I'll lay off and watch the process, and I'll get another opportunity to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gaines. Senator Roth and Senator McGuire and Senator Bates have questions. So Senator Roth, please.
Of course, the number of deaths don't speak to the number of injuries in accidents. So I'm still concerned about the availability of safety equipment. I have a question. The independent power source for the emergency lighting systems, can that simply be the battery on the bus?
One of the manufacturers mentioned that there is a potential that it could happen, and there are some electronic systems on the new buses, not the older buses, but the new buses, 2010 or newer, that potentially could be reprogrammed in case of an accident to have something like that available from the original battery.
I don't know what independent power source means. You have an alternator which supplies electrical power to the bus, and then you have a battery, and I would think the battery might be the independent, but maybe that's something you all can pursue, and that would certainly reduce the installation costs and eliminate the need to design an entirely new electrical system for emergency lighting. The other question I have on installation, we've been talking about how we get this accomplished for the 4,700 buses. These buses are down for service periodically anyway, aren't they?
Yes.
You have oil changes, you have cylinder issues, all the normal things that motor vehicles have where they're in the shop for a day or two. Couldn't some of this be done during the normal downtime on your commercial bus fleet?
Some of the items we will not do in-house. They would have to be done by a certified agency or outsourced vendor such as Complete Coachworks in Riverside. Having them get the parts like the ADA and cutting the door on the side of the bus for the retrofit ADA was all done by that vendor. We had to stand in line.
We're not talking about that kind of modification where we're cutting doors. That's 2017 for new buses, right?
Yes.
So let me ask a question, one last question, Mr. Chair, thank you. On the window, we spent a little time talking about this opening window and bonking people on the head and whether it can flip up and stay up and all that. I noticed at least the analysis talks about a window that can be easily opened and remain open. I wonder if that precludes having a window that would allow an occupant to push out and throw out, much like the old aircraft that we used to fly in and still fly in. And wouldn't that not be a cheaper alternative to designing a structural system where the window flips up and stays up by a system of springs and arms?
Not being an engineer, we have glass that's glued in right now into a frame. The framing itself is hinged on the top of the vehicle, so that would, anything that we would shove out and leave the vehicle going toward the ground would have to be something that engineers at the vehicle manufacturing would have to engineer and tell us that we could do with the coach or have somebody else test it to make sure that the continuity of the side of the coach is still in place.
Right, I would think it could be, I'm not an engineer either, but I envision a system of two latches, one at the top, one at the bottom, where you unlatch and throw out. But maybe that's something that can be explored, and maybe that would be a cheaper alternative to accomplish the objective, which is to let people get the heck out of there when, whether it's a fire or whether it's an accident where the front entrance to the bus is blocked and you need to get out of there quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Roth, Senator McGuire, and Senator Bates.
Thank you so
Senator
much.
McGuire.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Do appreciate the opportunity to offer some brief comments. Thank you, Mr. Lara. I'm going to be supporting the bill today with the understanding that Mr. Lara's office for the last few months have been engaged with the industry, working through the issues, and I think he is under the clear understanding that there's more discussions to come. I come from an area where our number one industry is tourism, and we see quite a few large charter buses coming in and out of the wine country. And understanding that reputation is number one, I do believe that the bill is offering solutions that are practical and will save lives, which means it's good for the industry. I also represent the area where Humboldt State is located. And what I know firsthand is not only has it been devastating for the families of those who died of asphyxiation, it rocked the Humboldt State campus. And while we always have to balance safety versus cost, what we know is that there is a challenge that we need to be able to conquer, and that is an issue of safety. And I agree that diesel was spewed from the accident, but we saw individuals die of asphyxiation, not from burns. And we also know that some of these regulations have worked in other countries for many years. So I think that this is a worthy discussion. We do need to look at reform to be able to protect those passengers. And reputation is built off a track record of safety. And I think the one area, sir, I think you brought up in regards to planes and exits, and while a lot of folks no longer look, it's because we are trained from a small child to be able to know where the exits are in planes. I think the last thing that you're going to think if you are going to be going for a college tour is that the bus is going to end up in an accident as it was. I think that is going to be the important piece that we learn from this horrible tragedy and make sure that it does not happen again. So we'll be supporting the bill. And I really appreciate both Mr. Lara as well as the industry engaging in the robust discussion.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Senator Bates, please.
Senator Lara, I really was surprised when I read the information in the packet that many of these issues have come before the safety board before and they've recommended before. So to you, congratulations for picking up on it after this terrible accident. And certainly we have our sympathies, our empathies to lose a child in that horrific manner. So condolences. My only issue is the implementation, and I'd like you to consider sequencing it. You could have it with the retrofit, more of a sequenced implementation, which would allow them to move in it a little more slowly, and in particular, the manufacturing, I think that needs to be moved out another year. We had an issue similar to this with buses. With the Orange County Transportation Authority, it was the size of the bus, the weight of the bus, and we were already in the purchase mode with some of those. So if you would consider that, I'm going to abstain today, lay off, and hope you continue to work. But I think if you approach a sequence on that, it'll be something that certainly will get my support.
If I can respond to Senator Bates.
Senator, please.
Thank you. Senator Bates, that's exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And so I give you my word, we're going to come back with some changes where we'll be able to, again, either sequence it out or come up with a deadline and timelines that are more appropriate. Again, the goal is to make sure we actually get the retrofits and that we get safer buses. And so that's the ultimate goal, and I'm going to make sure we work towards that.
In a postscript on that, maybe then the feds will start paying attention to us
Correct.
because they've already had this information.
Right.
It's been presented to them and presented to them. So if we move forward on it, it's a strong statement.
Thank you,
They'll
Senator
pick
Bates.
up on it.
Thank you, Senator. Other comments from other senators? Senator Lara, would you like to make closing remarks?
Thank you, members. I do appreciate the robust discussion and know that we are committed to working with the industry on ensuring that we actually get this done in an appropriate manner. Again, we know that this incident and it wasn't the bus's fault. But we have to make sure that where we have the majority of our people in the actual vehicle, that the vehicle does everything it possibly can to keep their passengers safe. And just to reiterate from the tragic event, and I know Santiago's here, and it might be tough to reopen this, but I do want to say that the report truly says that passengers reported total confusion over which windows were the exit windows and how to open them. Many tried kicking out the glass in their desperate efforts to escape, which greatly delayed the passengers' ability to exit the bus. I think a pre-safety briefing with, I know the industry is in support, would provide passengers critical information. Again, from the report, we knew that the windows in this case would not stay open. Kids reported not knowing, again, where the windows and exits were. And the industry itself has noted that according to the association, it takes 2 grown men to open one of these windows and actually hold it open. And so I think there's opportunities for us to continue to innovate. Other industries have done this. And so we're going to work with the Bus Association to ensure that they're successful in implementing the new regulations should this bill become law. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Laura. This investigation of this incident was conducted by the federal government. And then the federal government got an official report from the experts on investigating these kind of accidents, crashes. And they got a report recommending certain things that are contained in this bill. It went to the federal government, and the federal government didn't act. The federal government failed to act on the recommendations. And therefore, I think the state of California needs to act. The state of California needs to support this. So we're going to be working on this bill. Senator Laura agreed to work with the organizations. But we can't just sit by and wait for another accident or crash like this to occur. We have to act. And we can't have a charter bus with elderly, disabled children, people with developmental issues, students, fail to provide them with their public safety. So if approved, this bill will continue on the process. It'll go to the Energy Utilities Communications Committee, I believe shortly, right? Wednesday, tomorrow. So we will have another hearing on this bill tomorrow. We'll continue to work on it. I appreciate the author's commitments to take amendments. We can't take them at this hearing, but I urge support for this bill.
Mr. Chair?
We ought to move this bill forward.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to move SB 247.
We have a motion. Okay, can we call the roll, please?
Motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Communications. Senator Bell?
Aye.
Bell, I. Cannella. Allen? Allen, I. Bates. Gaines? Galgiani? Galgiani, I. Leyva. McGuire? McGuire, I. Mendoza. Roth? Roth, I. Wachowski.
Aye.
Canelo, aye.
Cannella, I. 6, 7.
We have seven votes in favor. It passes. We will wait for other members to cast their vote. This bill passes. And Santiago, wish you well in your studies, and anything we need to do to help you achieve your success, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Hill? Or Senator, you would like to present SB 681. This is item 4, and I'll let Senator Hill go ahead and present his bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members. SB 681 simply makes sure the punishment fits the crime. It reduces the fine for a rolling right-hand turn at a stoplight. Currently, when a driver does not come to a complete stop at a red light when making a right-hand turn and does what is commonly called a California stop, that driver could be facing a ticket of over $500. SB 681 reduces the base amount for right turn on red violations from $100 to $35. The final ticket amount with assessments will go from about $550 to about $290, depending on the local jurisdiction. Right turn on red violations will still be illegal, will still add a point to a driver's record, and will still allow for traffic school. SB 681 only impacts the base fine amount. My bill corrects a drafting error in AB 1191 Shelley of 1997, which inadvertently increased the base fine amount for right turn on red violations from $35 to $100. The Shelley bill focused on making sure the penalty fit the crime and dealt with driving straight through an intersection or turning left, the most common and deadly types of collision. It was not intended to apply to right-hand turns. In fact, a memo drafted by Mark Stivers, the staff person consultant who worked on the Kevin Shelley bill, states that when the bill was heard in Senate Judiciary Committee in 1997, Chairman John Burton said he would accept a ticket increase for a driver who runs a red light straight through, but not for one who fails to come to a complete stop before turning right on red. Kevin Shelley agreed, and amendments was done on the bill, were completed on the bill, which the author and all staff involved thought solved the problem. But unfortunately, there was some confusion in the code section, and all police officers and jurisdictions today are citing red light on red violations for the $100 base fine amount. $100 base fine tickets are generally reserved for very dangerous maneuvers, which includes, and this is what a $100 base fine amount would include, if you're speeding over 25 miles per hour over the speed limit on the freeway, or if you're failing to yield to an emergency vehicle. Other more dangerous maneuvers have lesser fines than a straight on red. For example, driving the wrong way on a one-way street or driving on a sidewalk each carry a base fine amount of $70, not even close to the amount of the $100 for the rolling right. Additionally, if a driver does come to a complete stop at a stoplight, if you come to a complete stop at a stoplight, but then proceed to make an unsafe right turn, almost hitting a pedestrian or cutting off a car that's coming from your left, that ticket is only $35. The right turn on red issue has gained attention with the proliferation of red light cameras. Reports have shown that at certain red light camera intersections, the majority of the tickets are for right turn on red violations, turning them into really cash generators instead of public safety enhancers. SB 681 simply puts more parity in our traffic violations. I have had numerous constituents contact my office who have received these tickets and have been devastated. $500 is a lot of money for some of these families, and in many cases, it's almost a third of their income for a month. There's been no opposition to this bill, and it did pass the legislature when I was in the Assembly a number of years ago, and I would respectfully ask for your aye vote, members.
Okay, we have a motion. We have other witnesses, please. There's a motion to.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Tim Chang with the Auto Club of Southern California. We did support AB 909 Hill back in 2010 when then Assemblymember Bill Hill tried to remedy this situation the first time. We do get a number of members who contact us asking if there's something that can be done with the significantly high fines that are associated with these rolling right on reds. We have expressed sympathy, but and now we're very glad that Senator Hill has taken up this cause again, and we do urge your aye support on this bill.
Other speakers in favor?
Mike Carpenter on behalf of.
Why don't you speak up a little bit more?
Mike Carpenter on behalf of AAA of Northern.
There you go. There you go, Mike. That's good. No, you got it. You got it.
3.5 million Northern California members in strong support of the bill. We appreciate Senator Hill bringing this issue back up, and it's a great bill. Urge an aye vote.
We have other speakers in favor of this bill. Do we have any witnesses that would like to testify neutral or having concerns or opposed? Please come forward. I see none, Senator. Sarah, to get it clear, the $500 breaks down to $100 the actual fine, but $400 or so is various sundry fees, charges, et cetera, that have been added on to the basic fine. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think it's over $450 on that fine in most cases. Those are assessments that we've added.
So you have a $100 fine. It's really a $500 some fine because of all the other stuff. Now, is there a study going on dealing with those fines and what to do about that?
Well, I don't know of a study, but I do know that the governor has been very active and concerned about those assessments that people are paying, and that they just keep increasing at a kind of a very rapid rate and without much control. So there's a concern there. I don't know if there's a study, but I certainly think that we should be looking at that because it just seems a little unreasonable. But it's easy that, and the legislature is guilty of adding $2 here, $1 there, $5 there, and that adds up to real money.
And some of those are traffic, some of those support criminal court activities, some of those support various other things, correct?
Right.
So it's all over the wood, okay. Do we have any other questions on this? Senator Allen.
Not a question. I just want to congratulate the author for fixing this problem that I've experienced personally, that so many people I know have experienced personally. I wish I'd thought of this bill myself, and I congratulate you.
I think, yeah, Senator Hill's been working on this for a while.
For a few years.
I'm sorry.
And it's never been from personal experience in my case. I've not had one yet. Just hear it from others, though.
Are you talking a Santa Monica ticket or Los Angeles or Sacramento?
Downtown Los Angeles.
Okay, there we go.
And the idea that you're paying a $500 fine, that a rolling stop on the right turn is penalized at the same level as blatantly running a red light is just ridiculous.
Okay. With that, Senator, would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for aye vote, members. Thank you.
Okay, members, we have a motion. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senator Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Cannella?
Aye.
Cannella, aye. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Bates?
Aye.
Bates, aye. Gaines? Gaines, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Leyva? McGuire? McGuire, aye. Mendoza? Roth? Roth, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye.
Okay.
9.
We have 9 votes in favor. We'll keep the roll open for absent members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to ask Senator Roth to come forward. Senator Roth is going to present item 2, the last item on our agenda, because members, AB 253 has been pulled off the agenda by the author, and we're going to have a hearing on that at some later date. And Senator Roth, you have the floor to present Senator Leyva's bill, SB 384. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a privilege to present Senate Bill 384 on behalf of Senator Connie Leyva. I direct your attention to frankly, the outstanding fact sheet that Senator Leyva and her staffer, Ms. Valderrama, prepared on this particular bill. The motivation behind the bill is very simple. It's to provide housing for California's most vulnerable veterans. Specifically, this bill requires that a percentage of state funds awarded for veterans housing be reserved for housing for our most underserved veterans, those veterans who have very limited housing options when returning from active duty. For single-parent veterans, for example, both male and female, finding adequate housing is nearly impossible. More than 60% of transitional housing providers who serve women do not house children. It has been estimated that in inland Southern California, there are only 12 transitional housing beds for female veterans. A recent report by the United States Government Accountability Office found that women veterans identifying themselves as homeless more than doubled, increasing by more than 140% during the period from 2006 to 2010. During the same period, there was a 45% increase in homelessness for male veterans, and that's not to say that that's acceptable, because of course that's not either. As you may know, many of these women also suffer from military sexual trauma. For these women, housing in facilities that overwhelmingly house male veterans pose both safety, serious safety, and privacy risks. Homeless female veterans experience sexual assault at up to 12 times the rate of the general female population. Senate Bill 384 provides flexibility to ensure that entire facilities can house our most underserved veterans, such as females with children. This bill requires that the California Department of Veterans Affairs work with local agencies to determine the appropriate amount of funds that should be reserved for this unique population. I respectfully request your aye vote, which will provide some desperately needed housing options for our most vulnerable veterans here in the state of California, and I'm available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Other witnesses in support, please.
Mr. Chairman, Member Pete Conity, representing the American Legion, AMVETS, the Military Officers Association of America, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Vietnam Veterans of America, and we are in strong support of this bill. As you're aware, more and more women are joining our military as we fight the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. Recently, the services opened all military specialties to women, including combat. So we expect that these problems will probably continue to grow, and women veterans have unique issues that need to be dealt with, and all of the previous people I represent support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the members? Do we have a motion on this item?
I got a question.
Okay, Senator Wachowski, please. And
We had our oversight hearing last week. One of the things I walked away with was reflected in the staff report that we shouldn't be putting percentages on because these affordable housing and veterans groups that are trying to clamor together these housing projects need some flexibility and that it's too soon. Why do we need this bill today? If that's what the experts or if that's what the oversight hearing sort of let me walk away with.
Well, because we've not been dealing with this issue adequately, and the legislature needs to take a position to set a stake in the ground with respect to these underserved veteran population. We're not setting a percentage. We're allowing the agency in consultation with local agencies and the stakeholders to determine the percentage because, of course, it's the California Department of Veterans Affairs that determines, how much money rolls out and when it rolls out. And as we learned the other day, it's going to be the second or third quarter before the next applications are adjudicated and the funds are rolled out. So we need to, when you're talking about female veterans and female veterans with children, we need to figure out how to deal with transitional and supportive housing, and simply putting 100 beds or 50 beds in play without designating that some of them are for these female veterans with children in a way that provides security and privacy will just perpetuate the problem.
We need to provide that security and privacy for all women with children who are homeless. That was the point of the advocates that were there, is saying this is a problem. Yes, the veteran, the single mother may have some other problems, and she may have different traumas than the other homeless person, but it seemed as though these other advocates, that CalVet administrator who's going to set this is going to put some parameters on this program that we just amended 3 years ago to give the flexibility to say, let's see how we can build units and provide services in the new world that the veteran CalVets are not familiar with the affordable housing and the servicing and the operating budgets. It became clear to me.
But let me make sure we're talking about veterans here, not the general homeless population. I'm not saying there's not a problem there too, because of course there is. We all know that. But we're dealing with the $600 million of previous VA single-family home loan dollars that were repurposed with Prop 41 in the Veterans Homeless, Prevention Act. And that's the money we're dealing with. So it has to be used for veterans. And all we're saying is somebody needs to pay attention to this underserved population, put a stake in the ground, we're not going to set the percentage. The people that know best are going to be setting the percentage. The California agency charged with administering the program, in conjunction with local agencies who deal with homeless issues and veterans' homeless issues, and the stakeholders in the private sector. So that's all we're simply trying to do. And by the way, if the applications are not sufficient, whatever the percentage is and whatever the number of dollars happens to be, if the applications are not sufficient to utilize that money goes back in to the general, not the general fund, but the general housing, fund applicable to this veterans housing money.
I didn't call for opposition. Is there any opposition to this bill? I don't see any. I think that, the facts of the matter is we developed this program, and the evidence that's shown here is we have essentially little or no housing for female veterans with special needs that needs to be served by the law. So I think the purpose of this is to commence a planning process with the department and work with them to look at supportive housing, transitional housing, all the issues dealing with domestic violence, children, all those kinds of issues, to have the services for veterans. I don't know about other senators, but I've heard from people in my district that women veterans that have served longer time in the service in the last overseas conflicts that have had traumatic experiences that need this type of housing and services for the kids. So I think this is a very important step that we have these kind of special needs housings to make sure that right now our count is 11,000 homeless veterans, many of them are women, that we have care for them and treat our heroes with respect. So I urge and I vote on this measure. Other comments? Senator Bates.
Because I keep harping on this, and Senator Roth, and I'm going to be speaking to that, and I totally support this. And if you've ever visited the Hall of Administration in the County of Orange and see what exists on the lawns outside of the administrative building, a lot of women, a lot of children. Just placing them in housing doesn't solve the problem. They've got to have services. And the Housing First model, once again, exempts any sort of drug treatment, drug testing, and it just is, I think it's it's going in the wrong direction. So I want to work with you, and certainly with Senator Leyva, that we take a look at what sort of programming can be part of the whole movement in this direction, because eliminating certain treatment programs, we don't get there. And again, visit the places where the homeless are congregating and see what's happening to the children. And it's supposed to be about, our responsibility to kids. So let us not lose that as we look at this across the whole spectrum of the homeless issues, that warehousing people is not compassionate. It is not rehabilitation. It's not giving opportunity. And we really need to focus on that, because when I heard the discussion that we have a motivational interviewing technique that gets people kind of moving in the same direction, we couldn't even quantify that. What is that? If it works, terrific. But I think that's missing. And on this particular population, women veterans with their children who've experienced these horrible situations, even reuniting with their kids when they've been gone for a year and a half and come back injured, huge, huge issues for the woman. So I like to just put that into the dialogue.
I completely and wholeheartedly agree. And as a matter of fact, just an hour ago, with the support of our colleagues, we moved forward the first step, a Veterans Bill of Rights in California. It will be the second in the nation behind Massachusetts and the nation of Canada to, among other things, guarantee veterans in this state the right to mental health, substance abuse, employment, and related supportive services when in these transitional housing units. That will give them an absolute right that they, if in fact it's passed and signed by the governor, that they can then enforce to make sure that it's not simply a bed in a brick and mortar facility, but it's the services that enable them to gather themselves together, to get on their 2 feet, and to integrate back into society. So thank you for your comments, Senator.
Okay, if we have no more comments, Senator, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you. Let's please call the roll, please.
The motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senator Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Cannella?
Aye.
Cannella, aye. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Gaines? Gaines, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Leyva? McGuire? McGuire, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. Roth? Roth, aye. Wachowski.
I'm going to stay off today, just not vote.
Okay.
Motion passes with 9 votes in favor.
This passes. This one's out.
That one is out. That bill is out. We have no other items. We'll,
Mendoza, and we only had 7 on this one.
let's
No abstaining.
open the roll on the remaining 2 items. Item SB 247, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass and refer to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Communications. Senator Bates. Senator Gaines. Senator Mendoza. Aye. Mendoza, aye. 8.
8. That bill is 8-0 with
2 abstain.
2 abstains. That bill is out.
Okay. And then
SB 681, Senator Hill's bill.
due pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senator Mendoza. Aye. Mendoza, aye. 10-0.
That bill is a 10-0 vote, and that bill is out.
Okay.
If there's no other further business, we're adjourned. Thank you.